Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to go over the pros and cons of Cub Cadet versus John Deere. I am going to today be comparing a 1966 Cub Cadet 122 to a 1970 John Deere 112. The Cub Cadet is a little bit older, but the Cub has a 12 horse in it and the John Deere has a 10 horse. Other than that, they're fairly comparable. This tractor is pretty much the same mechanics-wise as the newer versions, so I think it's a fair comparison. Other than this is 2 horse more. To start with, on the Cub Cadet, you have, like I said, a 12 horse Kohler engine that is generator start. The 112 John Deere has a 10 horse Kohler that is electric start. Both have electric ignition, and by electric start I mean an actual starter and a separate charging system. Both are electronic ignition, single cylinder K-series engines. They're basically the same engine, just a 10 and a 12. Personally, I think John Deere wins on that one. I like personally to have a separate starter and the stator under the flywheel, simply because it's simpler to work on, in my opinion. Well, I guess that could be debated, because this is all easily accessible. On the John Deere, you have to take the flywheel off to get to the charging system. So I guess it's all in preference. Both have pros and cons. I prefer the stator because it charges faster than the generator, and I don't run mine for hours on end. I'll start it and I'll run it for an hour or so, and then it'll get parked. And if the battery's already low, even with a stator, that's not really enough to charge it up fully. So I'm going to give that one personally to the John Deere. It's not really a better than situation there. It is just a preference. I don't really care for the generator start myself, but that's your choice. Next thing here is we're going to go over the drive system, because the engines are pretty much the same. The Cub has the side dipstick down here, and the Deere has the side dipstick also, but it's in a different location. The Cub is shaft drive with a clutch in it, and the John Deere is belt drive. The clutch is just tightening and loosening a belt. Personally, I've used both of these. As you're currently seeing now, this is the Cub Cadet pulling a smallish tree. I mean, I've pulled way bigger trees with way smaller tractors. And I don't know if I have any pictures of the 112 pulling anything. I'll put the wood wagon up there. The Cub Cadet, in second gear, trying to pull that tree, I was slipping the clutch. Keep in mind, this is a 3-speed transmission with reverse. I do not have the high and low option, so I've got first, second, and third, and reverse is down here. And running second gear, it's slipping the clutch quite a bit. In first gear, it'll slip it a little bit if I get plenty of traction. I'm not sure if my clutch is worn out because my pedal does not stay up all the way. I did talk to some Cub guys before I even got this that said these clutches weren't very good. But the John Deere will pull several times that amount of weight in second, third gear without slipping the clutch. These do have a 4-speed trans. The only reason it's a 4-speed though is because you have a creeper gear also. So basically, second gear on this is first gear on the Cub. I can pull in second and third easily with this tractor. I have in fourth, but the transmission on this one's kind of shot and pops out of fourth. It is getting a new transmission here before long though. I did also have the Cub pop out of gear. I was driving in the yard in third gear, not pulling anything, and it popped out. Very disappointed in that, especially since this transmission is significantly tighter than probably any of my John Deeres. So that was disappointing. I'm going to give the clutch system to the John Deere. That is factual. I can do way more with the belt drive clutch in these. Also, if the variator works nice, that is a plus as well. I do like on these though, how you can smoothly let the clutch out on the Deeres. Usually the variator doesn't work very well, and so the clutch is jumpy. So I'll have to give the Cub a point there. Moving on to the hood. Cub Cadet has a metal hood, and the John Deere has a fiberglass one. Now, you would think the metal hood would take the cake. I would rather the fiberglass, simply because if you put a bigger battery in this tractor with a metal hood and you close the hood, you're going to warm up very fast and it's not going to be good. Over here on my 140, I put a bigger battery in it, and since the hood is fiberglass, you see here and here where both terminals were rubbing, no issues. I've got a smaller battery back in it now a little bit. I think it's still trying to rub. So I'm giving that one to the fiberglass hoods. Also makes the hoods worth more money, so that helps the collector aspect. I do, however, like the front grille situation better on the Cub. I think the John Deeres look better, but this is all cast iron, so you can't really break that. These John Deere headlight bezels bust up pretty easily. Another thing is, on the Cub, you're going to hit down here before you hit up here, and it is the complete opposite on a John Deere. You're going to hit up here before you hit down here. So, pros and cons to both of those. I think I'm going to give that one to the Cub though. Front axle. I'm not a big fan of their steering situation. They're all freaking clapped. This is probably one of the tighter ones I've found. Cub's going to lose with their steering situation because John Deere's is all solid. You're not going to have play like that in the front axle. Both tractors have 3/4 inch spindles, so nothing different there. I have heard stories of guys breaking the ones on the Cub Cadets. I've never done it myself. I don't know what you'd have to do to break it. A friend of mine said he did a wheelie with one, and when he came down, the front axle broke in half. Never had that happen with the Deeres, and I have wheelied them. Mostly pulling things, and you push in the clutch, front end drops. So, don't really know there. Don't have any real issue with that. Obviously, the front tires and rims are interchangeable, so that's not something I can really go over. I will say the frame is beefier on the John Deere just by a little bit. I haven't had any issues with the frame on the Cub though, so I don't think anybody gets an extra point there. I do like on the John Deeres how everything is quick attach. On the Cubs, you have to bolt everything up, so I'm going to give the John Deere a point there. Easier to attach attachments. Again, this is a little bit unfair. I do not have a John Deere round fender to do the same with. But if I did, the sleeve hitch attaching is about the same on both Cub and Deere. You put a bolt through it. The John Deere, I think, is made to have a spacer. This, you just have to kind of have your bolts loose, which is kind of stupid, but okay. The John Deere rear lift, I am definitely giving the John Deere a point. The Cub Cadet's rear lift, linkage itself, not from here down, but this linkage part and how it lifts, that's just the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. The way it lifts is this bar pushes out and makes this turn up very chintzy. You're going to push over here and it's going to want to push everything this way, so going to be all worn out. Also, this does not have very much lift travel. That's one thing that I do like about the John Deere 112s, 110s. and the 200 series Deeres is they have a bunch of lift travel for the rear attachment. The Cubs don't, and the hydrostatic Deeres don't. The hydrostatic Deeres are still okay, but definitely giving Deere the point there. This was a bad design on Cubs' part, in my personal opinion. I would have done it way differently, but oh well. I do like the metal fenders on these. Of course, the John Deeres have metal fenders also. I just like the way it's designed. The footrest's got to give Cub the point. The John Deere's is smooth, but it's got some ribs on it. And if you step on there with a muddy or a snowy foot, you ain't got no traction. You're going to just slip and slide. This, I mean, that provides a lot of grip. I can step on and off of this tractor without slipping. So definitely the point there for Cub. As far as the dashes go, I'm giving Deere the point. No questions asked. If you come over here and look, you're sitting in the seat, you can have your hand on the steering wheel, you can access the throttle and the choke. You come over here and look at the Cub. You're sitting in the seat, you're driving, you need to be steering. You can't get to this very well. You got to kind of reach around underneath and just grab the edge of it. It's just a pain. You should be able to just reach right to it, or it should be out of the way some more. Same with the choke. You kind of have to pull it up. So I mean, you could do one of these numbers, but that's not very easy sitting in the seat. Cub could have done better there. They did on their later ones. As you see, here's a 108, which they fixed that design on a little bit. The choke, still easiest to reach through the steering wheel. You can reach around, and the throttle's easily accessible. So Cub did fix that. That was never a problem on any of the John Deere garden tractors though. So I'm giving Deere the point there. Let's see here. What else do we have? Let's go with the rear axle. Cub's rear axle is definitely way heavier, but I've seen more people break the Cub differential than the Deere one. Also, not a fan of how Cub did their wheel spacing. You can't really put these tires on narrow, I guess. It gets into the fender. This is as wide as these tires will go, and this is a very wide set of rims. This is probably the widest set I have. If you turn these around, they won't clear. This set of tires came on that tractor, and they were in the wide position, and they wouldn't fit without wheel spacers. They would rub. So Cub should have done better there. Deere, you can put them either way. That doesn't affect me personally. I like to leave all my tires as wide as they'll go anyway, but that is something to think about. See here. They're both wired about the same. I guess somebody told a friend of mine that the old Cubs have asbestos in the wiring, so that's not good. The John Deeres don't have that issue, so I don't know if that's true or not, so I'm not going to hand out a point there. Cub reflectors are, I don't know, they're kind of harder but kind of easier to hit. If you're backing into something, you're not smashing it, but you could have a limb come over here and just take it right out. Deere's are just on the back of the fender pan. Don't think I'm going to dole out any points there. I am going to give Cub a point though for this. You can flip the seat up, and I don't know how that stayed there for as long as it has, but it stays put somehow. Not sure what Cub was doing when they put their lift over here, and I'm not a big fan of their PTO setup. Well, let's go over their PTO setup real fast. Their PTO setup is trash. Deere gets the point there. To start with, when you have the PTO off, you have the piece that you can't see from this side that disengages it and engages it up against this. So it's just wearing it down all the time. So I'm leaving mine engaged. Also, Cub did not make it possible, if easy at all, to get the clutch off. To get the Cub Cadet clutch off, you have to get, what was it, 3? Basically Allen head set screws out, which never come out. You can't get them off. It's just more of a pain. Deere's, you take one bolt out of the end of the crankshaft and the whole situation comes off. So Deere gets a point there for sure. The lift, Cub Cadet was more of a chintzy kind of lift. I'm not knocking them for being on this side, although that is weird. But have you ever seen a Cub Cadet hydraulic lift? One of these generation? They have a giant hydraulic pump just sitting right here in the way, and they don't have anything up underneath. They just cut the lever off and put a cylinder right here. Very chintzy, very, very, very chintzy. John Deere, on the other hand, is a whole different thing. You had to order it that way. Hydraulic pump's tucked away on top of the engine. You can't see it. You got your hydraulic lever over here. Runs back to you. And instead of having the lift, see, there's no spot in the side for the lift where it would come out. Instead of having that, this is a completely different dash. And they have different undersides, different rock shafts to put your hydraulic cylinder in. Very chintzy on Cub's part. Not very neat. The John Deere, the only difference you can tell just by looking at it is instead of having a lever come up right here, you got a lever come back like this for the hydraulic lift. Cub puts this giant ass pump over here on the side. No, don't like that, so we're giving that to Deere. Don't exactly know what else to go over on these. I think the John Deere's 100 series look more stylish, but that's my opinion. These Cub Cadets can look pretty good. I've seen pictures. They're just a little bit less classy to me. I do, however, like the gear shift pattern better. They could use some more gears, but you know, that's life. Oh, I didn't even realize that that's loose, that twists. Anyway, gonna ignore that. On the Cubs, well, let's start over here on the Deeres. The gear pattern you have sitting in the seat is second, first is over here. You don't ever use first, really. First, or second, third, fourth, and then a reverse. Cub Cadet, their gear pattern is reverse, first, second, third. So for me, I like to shift on the go because I'm too lazy to stop all the time. It's easier for me to go from here to here than it is for me to go from here to here. So from here, I can just move over, done. Next shift, pull straight back, done. I like that it's up and down instead of side to side. I personally like that better. Not real sure on how good these transmissions are yet. I've only used this tractor a little bit. I've put, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 hours on it. I do like better on the John Deeres though. It seems that it's going to be easier to take the transmission out of the Deere than the Cub. But if it doesn't break, you shouldn't have to worry about that. Let's see here. What else can we go over, guys? I do like on the Cub Cadets. Here's something that's better for you. On the Cubs, even this tractor here, it's a 1966. You could get a 540 RPM rear PTO. You cannot get a rear PTO 540 on a John Deere until you upgrade to a John Deere 400, which is a Super Garden tractor. The gear drives never had a rear PTO. You could put a rear PTO on a 140, but all it is a shaft that's always running when the engine's running with 2 pulleys on the back, and all it's used for is to run a tiller. Cub Cadet, you can run anything 540 that the tractor will power, which is nice. So I'm going to give Cub a point there. I don't like on the Cubs, however, the metal that they used. For the rear end, it's just a really chintzy ass metal. They should have done differently. You see how round this hole is? Let's walk over here. This is a 105 Cub that I bought from John as a parts donor. He kept the engine. His hitch used to look like that. He jerked on a tree here one day, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. Almost pulled his hitch all the way through. Cub is a junk metal. It's not very high quality. But, I mean, as long as you're not abusing it, I guess it should last. But we can abuse the Deeres way more. So the Deeres are just a better quality tractor overall. I like them better. I am going to hang on to this Cub for now. I have 3 I'm going to sell, and then I'm going to try to find a 124, 126, and 128 just to try out the different generations. I don't want anything that's not a gear drive, and I'm not really interested in anything that is belt drive, gear drive. These are more stylish than the newer ones anyway. So I am going to hang on to this for a while, use it. I'm looking for 124, 6, and 8, but I can't really do much with them until I sell some others. I'm getting back too high in the tractors. I need to get back down some. It's just a little bit nicer with a John Deere. Also, the hoods on the John Deeres don't open and go against the front, which then causes the cast iron to be broken down. Deeres actually have hinges. That's as far as they open. So there's pros and cons to both tractors. My opinion is, and it seems like factual, is that the John Deere is better. Some people like the Cubs better, but I think it's just because they've never had a John Deere. I have had a couple of Cub people, one especially over the summer this past year. He said that he was diehard Cub until a friend of his let him run a John Deere 212, and he said compared to the John Deeres, the Cubs look home built, which is kind of yeah, I guess. They're definitely not as good of a quality as the Deeres. He said he got rid of all his Cubs and bought some Deeres. He said they're way more reliable than the Cubs and easier to run, which I do like them better. They're more bulletproof, but I think the Cub is probably more fun to drive and use. So there's pros and cons to both sides. I'm going to stay a John Deere guy. The lift is a big sell point for me, and slipping of the clutch. If those two things on this Cub were better, I would definitely be more apt to like it more. You shouldn't be slipping the clutch at all with a 12-horse Kohler, unless the clutch is whooped. And again, I don't know if mine is or not because things are not happy. He said that the previous owner had done some clutch work to it. I'll have to dig into it eventually. Let's see here. And of course the lift, that is a janky design. I don't know who thought of that, but I think it's dumb. Also, let me go over something else. John Deere's, except for some in 1968, which are now a collector's item, all the serial number tags right here below the serial number, or right below the steering wheel. Cub Cadet. You know, the newer ones, your serial number right here, easy to get to. Come over to the 122. Oh no, where's the serial number, you ask? It's on top of the transmission behind this cover below the rear lift. So Cub definitely had their head in somebody's ass when they designed that. You can kind of see it back in there. What a stupid design. Especially when you go into the dealership for parts, they want your serial number. And as a collector, I'm going to tell you, every collector wants to know what the serial number is. Personally, when I buy a tractor, I put it in inventory. I want the serial number, I want to look up the year, and a bunch of other information. And that's just inconvenient and stupid. Fortunately, I guess they stopped doing that in 1967, but Deere never did anything that stupid with their serial number tags. So I am going to give John Deere another point for that, and I would like to give John Deere 5 more points for that, but that wouldn't be fair. That's just the stupidest thing that I've ever seen on a Cub, or any garden tractor at that matter. Other than that, it's not a bad little tractor. I like it. I am not going to start collecting them a ton. I'd like to get 3 more, like I said, the 24, 6, and 8 to match this, and just have the 4 and see how they do through the different generations. But that's what I got for you today. I hope this video was at least entertaining, if not helpful. If you're looking to buy a tractor, a garden tractor, and you're not a collector, the John Deere 200 series are probably your best bet. They're cheap. They have Kohler single-cylinder engines, best engines ever made for these little suckers. They're gear drive, 4-speed. I prefer the gear drives over hydros. A lot of people are going now to hydros, so gear drives are way cheaper. But the 200 series, they're comfortable, they have options, and they're cheap. You have 6 different options. You have an 8-horse, 10, 12, 14, and 16. And, well, both of these are 8 horses. They're just trying to get cheap. Back in the day, the 208 was the cheapest one you could get. It was basically a 200 series that is stripped down. It has no voltage gauge in it. It has no variator, no side panels, smaller tires. This one has bigger tires. Somebody ordered it that way. But it was just a cheap down version. Now the 200 and 208 are pretty pricey because they didn't make many of them. My favorite for a working tractor would be the 12 or the 14. The last 2 digits are the horsepower. So except for the 200, a 208's 8, 10 is 10, 12 is 12, 14 is 14 horse, and a 216 is a 16 horse. So those are probably the best cheap tractor that you're going to get your money's worth out of. If you're just looking for a tractor to use, you're not a collector. If you're a collector though, I'm sure you already know what you want. So again, thanks for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like content like this, go back on my channel and take a look around if you haven't already. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. We do lots of content, from getting a tractor running and driving that sat for years, to going out and plowing or dragging logs or using it mowing, different tasks and there's a video that already came out for you guys. I went and all the literature that I had, I just kind of skimmed through and showed everybody. It's mostly John Deere because that's what I've been collecting the longest. I got a few Gravely pieces in there. I found a Jacobson piece. So go take a look at that if you're interested in stuff like that. It's just neat to me to see the literature and the different options you could get. So again, if you enjoyed this video, thank you for watching. Please hit the like button on your way out, and drop a comment if you have any questions, if you have any video requests. I like to try to get to all of them. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.